Hi guys, this is Connie. I can't put this book down, not just because it's almost overdue, but because we're almost to the end. Here is Connie Reads The Dogs of Winter. We're on chapter 49, titled Little Mother. Once upon a time, I said to the dogs in our cold, dark den beneath an abandoned warehouse, there was a ghost who very much wanted to be a boy. He thought if he were a boy, the very best boy, he would be loved and protected. He did not want people to look past him and through him, because he was just a little ghost and he was lonely and afraid. Little Mother groaned and panted. Smoke watched her, and so did I. Something was not right with Little Mother, and it frightened me. I stroked Little Mother's ear. And once upon another time, a time much later than before, there was a boy who wanted very much to be a ghost. I sighed. Now I would bargain with Baba Yaga herself to be invisible again. Later, something woke me in the dark. One of the dogs pawed at my arm. I sat up. What's wrong? I heard panting and moaning on the other side of the tiny den. I crawled across on hands and knees to Little Mother. I could barely make out the glow of her wide eyes in the dark. Oh, Little Mother, I said, reaching out a hand to stroke her. She snapped at my hand, just barely missing my fingers. I gasped in surprise. Never had she threatened me before. She whimpered an apology, but still, I crawled back across the rubble away from her. I cuddled Rip to my chest and pulled Moon and Star next to me. Only Smoke was allowed to be close to Little Mother. I buried my face in Lucky's flank. Nothing is right anymore, I said. I do not know what I have done, but everything is wrong. A tiny sound woke me in the gray hours of morning, the tiniest of cries. The dogs quivered next to me with excitement. On the other side of the den, Little Mother lay on her side, licking something. Smoke hovered over her protectively. I held my breath, hardly daring to move. I looked from Little Mother to Smoke. Is it what I think it is? I asked in our silent way. Smoke's eyes smiled. Come see, Malkik. Slowly, I crept over to Little Mother. She grumbled a warning. I stopped and turned my eyes away. Smoke snorted. I crept a little closer. This time, Little Mother did not growl. She busied herself licking the just-born puppies nestled against her belly. Oh, puppies, I breathed. I counted 3. Later, I would find the body of a 4th that had not survived the birth. Suddenly, the world was full of hope. We had puppies to care for. For the rest of the day, I made plans. We'll wait until they get a little bigger, I said to Mother, and then find a better place for the winter. Maybe we'll go back to the den where you had Moon and Star. That day, Lucky and I left only long enough to find food. Smoke would not leave her side. I'll get us lots of food, I promise, I told Little Mother and the others as I fed them from what I'd found. The puppies will grow big and strong. We listen to the snow scraping machines out on the streets. And when spring comes, we will return to the forest and never, ever come back. And so day after day, I hunted food with Lucky, Moon, and Star. Smoke brought her food too, and he didn't like leaving her alone for very long, and Rip had taken on the role of the puppy's babushka. At first I tried going out only when it was dark, so as not to be seen by the militia, if they were even still hunting me. But I could not bear the cold long enough to find the food we needed, especially for Little Mother as she nursed her puppies. The night belonged to the tall, skinny crow boys in their black leathers and chains, and the Bombsy, who would do anything for a drink. So the dogs and I devised what we thought was a clever plan. We hunted food separately, but together. The dogs would saunter along like any pack of street strays and investigate the trash bins behind certain restaurants. I stayed behind, pretending to sleep in a doorway, an old newspaper covering my face, and listened. If the dogs found food in the bins, they yipped. I waited until the sidewalk was empty of people, and then dashed behind the building and joined the dogs. I grabbed what food I could and ran back to our den. Some days, even after visiting several bins, there was not much food to show for our efforts, but at least it was something. And so it was, on this particular snowing afternoon. We had found a restaurant whose bins overflowed with food. We came back again and again to fill our bags. Lucky and Moon and Star disappeared around the corner without a backward glance. I curled up in the shivery doorway and waited for their signal. And waited, and waited. I sat up, the newspaper covering my face fluttered to the ground. My stomach groaned, and my hands ached in the cold. They must be filling their bellies first, I grumbled. I caught Star and Lucky doing that before, gorging themselves before calling me. I ground my teeth. Anger filled my belly. And then I heard a sharp, panic-stricken bark. This was not the usual "we found food" yip. This was a call that said they were in trouble. I heard the bark again. I ran around to the back of the building and skidded to a stop in the snow. I saw their paw prints led to the garbage bin, yes, but then they continued on. I followed the prints with my head down. I heard another bark, Lucky's deep, angry woof. The prints and the bark led to the back door of the restaurant. I stopped to listen. Lucky, I called in a loud whisper. Moon? Star? Moon's answering whimper came from inside the restaurant. Panic raced through me. How had they gotten inside? I grabbed the door and handle and turned it. It was locked. I pulled and pulled on the door's handle with all my might. I banged on it with my fist until they turned bloody. Lucky, I cried. Moon! They can't help you now, little Mowgli. Every part of me turned to ice at the sound of that voice. I lowered my fist and turned my head. There, with falling snow resting on his wide shoulder and a cigarette dangling from his bottom lip, stood the woman in the hat's son. Many other militia stood on either side of him in their gray coats and tall black boots. I looked frantically to the door and then to the way in and out of the alley. The militia were everywhere. Come with us quietly now, he stepped closer. Don't give us any trouble and your dogs won't get hurt. My mind raced as fast as a subway train. Little Mother and Rip and the puppies needed me to bring food, but they had also had smoke to protect them and take care of them. Moon and Lucky and Star were trapped inside the restaurant with no way to get out except me doing what the militia said. And how did I know the dogs were unharmed even now? I flicked out my knife. One of the policemen gasped. Another snickered. I stuck my chin in the air and made myself as tall as I could. Let the dogs go, and I'll come with you, I demanded, looking directly into the dark eyes of the woman in the hat's son. A short, fat policeman laughed. So the wild child is not dumb. The old woman's son narrowed his eyes and studied me. A smile played at the corner of his mouth. Okay, Mowgli, it's a deal. But you must step away from the door first. Once I moved aside, he signaled to one of the policemen. Open it. I readied myself for what would come next. The dogs would burst through the door and knock down every one of the policemen. Then we would run away. I knew I could outrun any militia. I didn't need shiny black boots to run fast. I didn't need famous basketball players' shoes. Like the dogs, my feet had wings. The door swung open. There on the cement floor of the storeroom, wrapped in a thick black net, lay the dogs, helpless. They locked their pleading eyes on my face and moaned. No! I cried. I lunged for the dogs and attacked the net with my knife. Arms grabbed me from behind and pulled me back. Let me go! I screamed. I slashed with my knife at anything I could. Someone cried out and cursed, but even as those hands fell away, more hands grabbed and hit and twisted. My knife fell to the ground. The dogs barked and snapped and growled from their place on the floor. I snarled and snapped and sank teeth. I was knocked to the ground. Gloved hands shoved my face into the snow and twisted my neck sideways. Hands grabbed my legs and my feet and tied them with rope. Another pair wrenched my arms behind my back and tied them too. Give him the shot, someone said above me. We can't carry him screaming and biting through the streets. I rubbed blood from my face in the snow. My eyes searched and found Lucky. His dark brown eyes poured into mine. I'm sorry, he said. Oh, Lucky, I moaned. He'd never spoken before. Something sharp stung the back of my neck. A sick, warm sweetness flooded my head and my stomach. The last thing I saw was Lucky's eyes. And that's the end of chapter 49. I really wish this book would get better. But we have about 10 more chapters to go. Be careful with that and enjoy, please and thank you, and I will see you for the next installment. Bye.